I'd like to call the February 8th, 2016 Personnel and Finance meeting to order. First of all, we need approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Move on to item 2A, public comment.
Sorry.
Put your finger here. Any public comment? Last call, any public comment? We have no public comment, and we'll move on to item 4A. Unless there's any changes to the January 11th meeting minutes, I need a motion and support to approve them.
So moved.
Motion support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Move on to item 4B, Sheriff Patrol Car purchases. Welcome, Under Sheriff.
Good morning. I'm before you this morning looking for approval to purchase 7 patrol vehicles in total, 5 Dodge Chargers and 2 Ford Police Interceptors, commonly referred to as an Explorer. Using the State of Michigan My Deal bid prices, the dealers would be Signature Ford, which is a My Deal dealer, and Snethkamp Dodge for the respective Dodge and Ford products. The vehicle prices individually are listed there. It would be a total purchase price of $181,576. The capital improvement fund is budgeted for those 7 vehicles, along with additional funds for the upfitting and movement of equipment over new equipment, new emergency equipment, etc. We have listed on the agenda item on the back page the 7 vehicles that will be going out of service. We gave Rick Shealy from Facilities the opportunity on Thursday to look over those vehicles at the Fleet Garage and talk with Dan Proud, the mechanic, to see what the situation was with those vehicles. And fortunately this year, the vehicles that are going out of service are just high miles, past their useful life, have some high repair bills, things of that nature, unlike last year where we had vehicles missing transmissions and rear ends and those type of things that we turned in. The positive being is that those vehicles should fetch some dollars, although probably very limited at auction. At least it'll be a small revenue stream coming back in. The miles listed on the vehicles, you can probably expect for those vehicles to be turned in to all have between another 10 to maybe 20,000 at the very high end once they're actually turned in. By the time we place the orders are fulfilled, delivered to the dealer, and then vehicles are beginning to be upfitted. You're talking midsummer to late summer before we transition vehicles over. So we have many more months of use on these vehicles before they're turned in. So they'll all be easily in the 150,000 or 150,000 plus mile range when they're being turned in. This year, again, we have 7 vehicles we're purchasing, 7 that we're turning in. I do understand, and I am aware that vehicles are very big, large, visual type of thing. I appreciate the board's support and their understanding that this is, an office, not necessarily a perk, but a required element for duty because that's what police officers do.
Thank you for that.
So move the request, and then I've got a question.
Support.
We have a motion and support. Is there any discussion?
Under Sheriff, looking at the payables from affairs and agencies, it looks like we were doing cams on the 2013 Chargers.
Yes, we have run into some cam issues with the Dodge Chargers. Several of them we've gotten in before the 100,000 mile engine warranty. We did pay for 3, if I recall. We have spoken with Daimler Chrysler, or I guess it's not Daimler Chrysler anymore, but Dodge Fleet. They have indicated that there was some surprise that they made the dealer made us pay for those. We are in conversations with them. They do seem receptive to reimbursing us, at least wholly or partly, whether it be just for parts or whether it be for the entire thing. We have not had any issues with the 2014s and beyond. Dodge Fleet has indicated to us that they have corrected or remedied that problem. I will give kudos to Dan Prow. Once the defect began presenting itself, he began routinely sending the Dodge cars into Extreme Dodge to have the cams replaced once he noticed the ticking. So yes, that is an issue, but we've not had it on any 2014s and beyond. I will point out one thing too also, that the Dodge Chargers that we'll be buying are actually the all-wheel drive V8 version that was new last year, and that all-wheel drive V8 version is actually $100 less this year than the standard rear-wheel drive that we bought last year.
Any further discussion? Daniel?
Sorry, just a small question. I'm just curious. I was just looking at the mileage on the 7 cars that are going out of rotation. Just curious. Are the newer cars look like they're driven more because they've got about the same amount of mileage as cars that are like 4 years older? Just curious how that works.
A lot of it really depends on what it is being utilized for. Typically, what we try to do to keep some of the miles down is the newer cars will go into service as what I would call a general road patrol car, meaning they're all patrolling all segments of the county. As the cars begin to reach higher mileages, we try to push them out into like the township contract assignments where maybe it's not being used 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Maybe it's being used for 1 or 2 shifts or once a day or a few times a day. And then ultimately, as they get towards their last life cycle, it's kind of like the progression of a human being here. You know, you've got the main frontline patrol, and then it moves out to a secondary, less intensive assignment. And then lastly, it'll get moved on to, like, say, the school resource officers, where they don't do a lot of frontline patrol except for maybe when the schools are on holiday or something like that, but they need a visual vehicle to park at the school or in case there's an incident at the school, but there's not a lot of patrol miles. So it gets moved on through those assignments, and sometimes just because of the way the fleet goes, whether we have cars down or whether we've crashed cars and are getting repaired, some vehicles may just see a high rotation in that general patrol and may just rack those miles up. So yes, but pretty solidly we get anywhere between 130 to 150 and above. Pretty typical. I mean, when you consider that if you combine all of our patrol miles over an entire year, it's roughly around 1 million miles that we drive, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, just depending on the circumstances. So it can be hit or miss. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, just had a quick question. Chris, do you reflect the amount of time the vehicle's the engine's running? Because I know that a lot of times the miles doesn't reflect really the operational wear on the engine because it's running.
Yes, all the cars, well, the 2 vehicles that we're running now all have, engine meters in them. And that is one of the things that we look at because obviously our cars spend a lot of time idling than they do driving. For instance, if we're at a call or on a traffic point for a lengthy crash and things like that. So a lot of times our service interval for our vehicles are not necessarily done by miles, they're done by hour intervals. And that's one of the things that the fleet mechanic looks at is whether the hour meters is beyond one of the service cycles, so the 5,000 miles. We service them on 4,000 to 5,000 mile intervals, but if the if the hour meter interval is higher than that, then he'll go ahead and service it. But that's primarily how he concentrates the service intervals.
If I may, and the reason I brought that up, and for those commissioners who are not aware, you know, unlike how we drive a car, we'll measure the miles. There's so much more going on with a patrol car than miles. They may sit for hours running the engine if it's a bad scene or whatever the case may be. So,
Chris, what is the hour meter? What hours?
I don't know, and I've never actually looked at hour meter in the car. Yes?
I may be able to answer that question. Usually for a vehicle, the rule of thumb is 1 minute of idling equals 1 mile. So for every hour that a vehicle is idling, you've put 60 miles on the vehicle. So you project that, extrapolate that out by how many hours are on the vehicle plus how many miles are showing on the odometer. It gives you a really good picture of what these vehicles are going through.
What hour range do we hit where we decide it's near the end of its dependable, useful life cycle? I mean, is it 10,000 hours, or that's what I was wondering about?
I'm not privy to that. It's just with a patrol car, if it has over 100,000 miles on it, chances are you take the engine hours, and I think just with normal practice, it'd probably be close to 200,000.
Okay. Okay.
I don't think that's unrealistic. I mean,
Just curious if you could find out what the hour meter indicates on these, just for future, because it does shed a different light when you think about the eye. You know, a lot of people drive their cars 100,000 miles and go take them, get their first tune-up. And this isn't necessarily the case, but if we don't deal with the hour meter and stuff like that we don't have in our cars, it's easy to look at it in a different light.
right, and that's one of the things about the mechanic for JSO. He's very in tune with these vehicles. He's done this for a number of years. Truly a top-notch mechanic.
Sounds
So-
like it. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, any further discussion? We have a motion and support. We're ready to vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we're on item 4C. This is a friend of the court warrant vehicle replacement. And we had some questions on it, and you seem to have some answers.
Well, I'll certainly do my best to address the questions that come in on this, and I certainly, first off, want to say I appreciate the board's due diligence on purchases like this. This was a tough one myself because it's a relatively low-mileage vehicle, and yet cars nowadays are basically 4 or 5, maybe 6 computers sitting on top of 4 wheels. This vehicle in question, when it was used by district court as an ISP, intensified supervised probation vehicle, was running into problems, actually to the point where the last fix to it was going to cost over $2,000. Administrator Bates did not want to pay for it. She couldn't afford it and turned the vehicle in. Then, a friend of the court had a vehicle that was totaled out in late 2014. We used some of that insurance money from it to fix this vehicle and kept it on the road. Still, the problems of it cutting off it whenever it wanted to still existed. We did have money put in the budget to replace a vehicle for them, and because of the problematic conditions of this vehicle, I brought it forward today realizing that there would be questions and would do my best to answer them. Along with this, we worked with a GM engineer for 2 months to try to find out what in the world's going on with this vehicle. We did not have any success in that. The other unknown in this is we don't know how many engine hours are on the vehicle because we don't have an hour meter on it yet. This is part of what we're working towards with the Verizon fleet network system, so that all of our vehicles in our fleet would have, among other things, an hour meter. So I would be able to stand in front of you and say, sure, this vehicle only shows 88,000 miles on the odometer, but due to engine hours, it has quite a bit more. The other component in this, too, is the fact that when I talked to Director Hoditz about this, she pointed out that the state reimburses us 20% per year on these purchases. So in 5 years, the vehicle would be paid for. So with all that in mind, I'll gladly take any questions.
Any questions? Commissioner Elwell?
Rick, just a couple of comments. When I first looked at it, I think 2 of the arguments in replacing it were the year of it and the miles of it. That doesn't fly with me. I mean, my cars are an 06, an 07, and an 11, and they have many more miles. Patrol cars that deputies are in are different when it comes to the mileage, but I think it would be helpful if we had seen maybe the service history could have been included, maybe to show us what's been spent on it and that the problems that you're having with it. And that's the first I heard about 20% being reimbursed every year, which does make it a little different. But the year of it and the miles was falling on deaf ears with me.
And understandably so. I think in my quest to be succinct in my staff reports, I hate to give pages of detail, but I think in this case, it certainly would have been warranted.
Commissioner Rice.
Rick, thanks for the information. Obviously, I had talked with you about this beforehand as well, and so you've answered, for me anyway, you've answered the questions quite thoroughly, and I certainly support this. And also the fact that I find it interesting, even with it being 2012, 88,000, there must be several other variables, some of which you mentioned, because current Blue Book value of $2,000 kind of says it all. So.
Yeah, well, and again, it's one of these issues where, as an alternative, we could just keep repairing the vehicle. It's just when you're dealing with computerized vehicles, we could go through that extra $2,000 and shoot one repair just based on diagnostics and then hoping that they in fact did get the problem taken care of.
Commissioner Elwell.
Rick, just one more question for me. When, looking at the note on what you want to buy, it's an Impala again. Do we purchase the police version of that for vehicles like this, which I think makes more sense?
We do.
Okay, so it's heavy-duty cooling and electrical and everything on it
Made
versus
for
passenger, right? Okay.
that commercial type application.
Any
I'll move the request.
Okay, we have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Unanimously. Thanks for your extra discussion here. It put it in a different light.
Thank you.
Morning. Good morning. Jim could not be here this morning, so I'm standing in his place.
I think just one question from me, and I'm trying to scroll through and find it, but it seems like I recall that earlier this year we moved money, or last year, moved money from the county tower elevator project to somewhere else. And is that an accurate number that we see in here? Because it seems like it was a fairly significant number and you're wanting to move most of it or carry over most of it. I thought we had spent it already. I'm sorry, I think it's, well, we can find it here.
No, they took off. And I would have to get back to you. I would have to get back to you on that question. I'm not sure. I'm assuming that this schedule is accurate, but I can do a double check and make sure that it is correct.
I think Adam's trying to raise his hand, but I'm looking at it here as the tower building maintenance, elevator upgrade. We originally budgeted 92,142 and you're wanting to carry 67,760.
Yes.
If you recall, several months ago, we had an emergency at the courthouse building where we had to come up with some money to fix that. Actually, it was at the jail elevator. And so the board approved an emergency transfer of funds from this tower building. We still don't have enough money to get the work we want done here, but we have future monies allocated. So we're moving forward what was left over from the $100,000 that was allocated at the beginning of last year.
So, Adam, you're saying we spent like 25,000 at the jail? Okay.
That's right.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Need a motion and support, please? We have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. This will go to the full board. Thank you. We also have next our December 2015 monthly financial statements.
Yes, these are the December 2015 statements. So the benchmark is 100%. Our expenses are looking pretty good. We're at 98.8%, which is consistent to trend throughout the year. We've been steady in par with that 3-year trend, but we still do have expenses to accrue, so that is not a final number. They are on cash basis. As you imagine, people are still turning in bills and things to accrue at this time. And then our revenues, they are under budget, but we have still additional revenues, about 1.7 million to accrue, and that usually comes from our grants, contract for services. A big one would be the property taxes that still need to be accrued. So you have to consider that when you're looking at being under budget.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Good job. Next up, we'll have item 4F. You guys done fighting? Okay.
Yeah, usually that's you down there, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay, we have the Math Make a Difference fund transfer, $18,883. We wish to transfer that to the intermediate school district for the Math Makes a Difference program. Have a motion and support. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I guess would be the administrator.
Anyone you would like.
Thank you. So my first question is, are we going to be provided a breakdown of how these funds are going to be used?
Well, first I'll say Commissioner Alexander is probably equally qualified to answer these questions, but this is a program that we started probably 5 years ago, and from the county education team, and when the Cradle to Career committee was formed, which succeeded the county education team, they didn't find a home for Math Makes a Difference, and it's something at the time we still felt very strongly about, and I know Commissioner Alexander's been working very hard to find a home for it, somebody to pick it up. Those funds, though, the county put originally $10,000 into it, and it was matched by several other organizations, institutions within the county. But basically what we have left is what money that was passed through to us from the Math Summit from Jackson College and Baker College. So really the county's funds were spent. What we have left is the money from Baker and Jackson College. To answer your question, our intent is to pass that on to the intermediate school district and allow them to run that program as they so choose.
So Adam, would it be fair to say that the county served more as the fiduciary than any other role?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Would it also be fair, I'm sorry, can I interject a question, Dan? Fair to say that we have already expended more than the county's funds that were put in? Okay.
Yeah. So does that mean we're not going to get a breakdown of how the funds are going to be used?
It would probably be accountable. There's no intention for it to come back to the County Board of Commissioners. There's no intention for any type of reporting to come back to the County Board of Commissioners. It may come through the Cradle to Career initiative or through the Intermediate School District audit, or I'm willing to bet that they'd gladly come back and report to the board if we asked them to.
And for Daniel, for your understanding, we do have a presence on the coordinating council for Cradle to Career. I serve as that individual, and Adam is at the majority of meetings as well. And that will be a position that another commissioner, in the near future, will be looking for another replacement. So the county has a presence at the coordinating council for Cradle to Career. The Cradle to Career is a network. It's very unlikely and unusual that they have funds to work with. It's more initiatives and collaboration. So this makes it unique. And instead of just using these dollars that were donated to us, having them just sit there and not be offer an effective impact on our community in increasing math skills. We just see this as the right thing to do to move these funds forward so that they could be implemented in successful programs that are data-driven and research-based throughout the community.
I'm just curious about the math program that they plan on using it for. I'm also curious, how would somebody get information about the Math Makes a Difference program, or how would they get enrolled in it? Or I'm just curious for people who may be interested, how would they get that information, or where would they go to?
The county purchased the domain name for the internet site, and the internet site was a resource for parents and kids. The parents, in terms of finding tutorial services or organizations that help kids, and then the kids side, it connected the kids to a lot of games online that they could do for fun. We intend to give that domain name with the money to the Intermediate School District, and frankly, Commissioner Alexander was instrumental in setting up a meeting with their new math and science person, and she had, from her look at what we had done, was very excited about taking this on. So we were equally excited because we've watched it, sit there and languish for the last couple of years. So we're excited to see something go on with it.
So I think also, Daniel, in response to that, as the commissioner who has the seat at the table for the coordinating council, I'm going to be more than happy to keep you informed of what's going on there.
Any further questions, Daniel?
Once the funds are used, is there any replenishment of these funds, or how will that program continue to be funded? Especially since you just said that they don't normally receive funding to run programs, or how are they going to continue the program after the funding is used?
Well, that's going to be the responsibility of the Intermediate School District. She's going to use this as an opportunity to do what is already her role in that organization. Her role is to support math and science. So she's using this as just as almost like a grant that she might apply for. That's probably going to be up to them to figure out how to fund it long term. I would say from the board's perspective, education is one of our strategic goals. And so any request to add additional funding would have to come through the strategic plan budgeting process, whether it be for Math Makes a Difference or some other initiative. The $10,000 that we put into there was the first real hard money that the county's put into education, and it was a sign of a commitment that they were going to put their money where their mouth was. So the board's shown a strong commitment to it, but any future requests would have to come through an appropriation.
Correct. This is not anything we're looking for, that anyone's asking for or looking for on an ongoing basis. I believe it would have been about 3.5, 4 years ago that this one-time contribution was made.
Okay, thank you.
Good questions.
Any further discussion? Need a motion and support? Oh, I do? Okay, all right. Okay, we'll proceed to vote then. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Thank you. On to item 4G, the JCDOT staffing plan. This, I believe, is the same plan that we've seen in the
Answer questions or give you a quick.
welcome, Christopher.
Thank you.
Anybody have questions on this specific?
Happy to answer any questions. Really, nothing has changed from the original proposal. This presentation was attached to the item. There's also a staff report that is being uploaded any moment here where I just kind of formalized what was in here. So nothing has changed within that. Again, we're asking to increase the number of FTEs approved as part of just a Phase 1 approval. We're hoping to come forward with Phase 2, which is more operations focused because of workload demands on our operations crews. There's just more number crunching on that. This, in my opinion, is a no-brainer. The positions pay for themselves. The budgetary impact at a glance is about $500,000 adding these FTEs. However, when you peel back the layers of the onion, so to speak, we're paying consultants now that we won't have to pay, which will save several $100,000. We are also sharing these positions with not only Calhoun County, but potentially with the City of Jackson and other entities that are interested in having us doing engineering and so forth. And we're going to streamline some of our operational issues internally and realize some efficiencies. So we used to have 23 administrative people. This plan still keeps us under that by, I think, bringing us back to around 16 or so. So we're still well under where we used to be as a road commission, if that makes sense. Plus, we're sharing. 12 of these positions are now shared as lavender colors here. Lots of warm and fuzzy feelings, I guess. It's my favorite color. That's why I use lavender, as I've mentioned before. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Elwell.
Chris, just worthwhile to point out, as we talked about last week, if I understood it right, that all these positions are exempt positions and therefore don't add legacy cost to the retirement system, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and support for this item. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your explanation.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce our new engineering director. If I
Absolutely.
could have a moment. Angie. As part of the proposal, you'll notice a uniquely colored cell. I have 4 key management people on my team at JDOT and the same 4 people over in Calhoun. In my first 15 months as managing director, Angie has been outstanding as the director of engineering in Calhoun. In fact, one of the things I changed within only a few months in Calhoun was promotion to her director of engineering role from a county highway engineer position. So a couple of key strengths that I've noticed with Angie, and I'll let her speak, she is wonderful with building partnerships with MDOT, with DEQ, but also with our intergovernmental partners. She forged relationships with our Jackson people. So she walks in the door with instant credibility with our Jackson team. And I think she's going to be phenomenal in helping to recruit the right kinds of people that fit with HPO principles here at the Jackson County Department of Transportation. So do you want to say anything about yourself, Angie?
About myself? Hi, thank you. I have worked for Calhoun County for 12 years now. I've been the assistant county highway engineer there. I've grown professionally there. I'm very excited about this new step in my career. One of the things I love about my position at Calhoun is the growth, meeting everybody, getting to know the different agencies working together. And that excites me, having the shared director, because now our staff has very specialized things. Before, we had to have one person that could generally do everything. But now, sharing the 2 engineering departments, we'll be able to specialize in different things. And we can have someone that specializes in culvert design or drainage work in both counties, get better work out of the person. So now managing that, I'll be able to, I think, benefit both counties with more, being able to do more things in-house. At Calhoun, we used to outsource a lot of bridge design. So does Jackson County, I believe. With having the joint venture with the bridge engineer, we'll be able to do that in-house. Keeping everything in-house, there's more pride by our staff with work. I'm very excited about the adventure. Besides that, I'm a mom. I've been married for 13 years. I have 4 wonderful daughters, so I'm very busy, work and home. I coach soccer. So if you guys need to get a hold of me, I return, I have my phone by me constantly, so I will text, email whenever you guys need with questions for constituents. I already got to meet Julie with a concern with one of our projects. It's actually a joint one between, well, it's on the border, Calhoun-Jackson border, but I was able to get her a response for her constituent, so I'm happy to be working with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie.
Questions? Carl?
Hey, Angie, I'm going to hold you to this since Chris said it, that you work well with MDOT and DEQ.
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome, because I don't know anybody who works well with them. Thank you.
Thank you.
When I might have mentioned this before to some of you, but when I had called to follow up on some of our projects, 3 or 4 times now, my follow-up, my conversation usually ended with our shared relationship with Calhoun, and there was always oh, you work with Angie. We would love working with Angie over in Calhoun, blah, blah, blah. So I was just taken aback, over the year with my various conversations that was usually a concluding remark by the staff. So, and, the proof is in the pudding. Angie has done a phenomenal job, solo almost for years, writing grants. And Calhoun had the unique problem of having to match about $12 million in grants that they garnered in a short period of time due to her efforts. So that was part of their bond issue, actually, to come up with the 20 cents on the dollar that they needed. So happy to accept the money and utilize it, and we're hoping to bring those same grant funds to Jackson. So, thank you.
I have one question. Now, is Angie a Jackson employee now?
Short answer, no. Just like I'm not a Calhoun employee. So I'm all yours. I'm your FTE. Angie is technically Calhoun's FTE. She's being promoted to a new level. She'll get a salary increase for the increased responsibilities associated with this, but she'll remain a Calhoun employee.
Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, we'll move on to item 5. 5A, the claims. Need a motion. We have a motion, support to pay the claims. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the same. Last I knew, we had no minutes to review. And I don't think we're having a meeting next month. I don't see any reporting schedule. So, moving on to the second round of public comment. Looks like a little short on public. Committee member comments. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.